Hey you guys, it's your girl Antoinette, and today I will be coming with you with the reaction from NYC is forcing its people to leave forever. How in the world can a state put out people? Can they do that? I've never heard of that. Cause if that's the case, a lot of people will be gone from where I stay. That is just crazy to me. Like, I've never heard. How can you literally put people out? And I thought the government was out here to supposedly help people, and put them on this long waiting list so they can get even poorer. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on so you can see me. And let's get into this video because I want to know.
We know the cost of living in New York City has skyrocketed.
Researchers say a single adult needs to make more than $138,000, while a family of four needs more than $318,000.
So this means New York City is now too expensive for most of its own residents. But even if you make enough money to live here today, costs are rising so fast that tomorrow you might have to leave.
This shows that the number of millionaires opting to rent instead of buying property has nearly tripled since 2015.
Costs in New York City have increased 131%. Now half of all New Yorkers are struggling.
I think there needs to be subsidies for like the middle income individuals.
Today, the state can raise the minimum SNAP benefit from $23 to $100.
New Yorkers are feeling less positive, not very safe, and unsatisfied with most city services.
I feel frustrated, I feel sad because I have to support my family.
I don't think we're gonna survive.
Only half of more than the 6,000 New Yorkers surveyed plan to stay if they.
So to live comfortably in New York City, you've got to make more money than the rest of the country by a long shot. But what nobody's talking about is that these rising costs aren't stopping anytime soon, because we're currently in a housing crisis where only about 1% of apartments are available to be rented. On top of that, shoplifting and theft are forcing retailers to raise prices even faster than inflation so that they don't have to shut their doors and close completely. And the most frightening aspect of New York City's hostility towards middle-class existence is that it doesn't seem like anybody in charge is doing anything to help the people who need help the most.
Well, that's why they in
people
Target.
asking themselves how on earth they are going to keep surviving in a city that just gets tougher and tougher every single year. And if you make enough money to live here this year, what about next year? What about next month? What about next week? Well, to answer those questions, we're not only going to go inside some of New York's smallest apartments to see what people have to put up with, but we're also going to look at what your dollar will actually buy you as far as groceries and supplies go. But first, it's important to understand that the costs to live here have exploded in such a short period of time that it's trapped many of the people who live here in situations they aren't quite sure how to get out of.
Walmart a little bit cheaper than Target. Target is just, Walmart high, but Target is higher. Target ain't gonna play with that pocket. They should have found like another like place to like do this research on, not Target. And those apartments, those itty bitty apartments, they could be like over like $200,000 or $300,000 like a month. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. I would be on the street. I promise you, I would be one of those people to beg. That's a lot, because if you don't have a good education and stuff, and you don't have a good job, it's not gonna happen. Content creating, it's gonna take a while for that. So, girl, you have to do what you gotta do to get that money.
So before we get into the specifics of why it just gets tougher and tougher to live here, you've got to understand that the study on $138,000 being comfortable to live here also claims that $70,000 a year is just scraping by. And to put that in perspective, the median income across the country in 2022 was $75,000 a year. And if you want to make it in New York, you'll have to earn double that. But as you'll soon see, most of the jobs here don't quite pay that much money. And housing costs here are exploding so quickly that even if you do make that much, it might not be enough forever. And to many people, this is very confusing because just a couple of years ago, New York City was the land of discounts on apartments because nobody wanted to live here, and now things are higher than they've ever been. Why is that happening, and what can people who have to...
Nice, but it's time.
Welcome to a New York City one-bedroom. Now, the rent on this guy, $34.95 a month, which for a one-bedroom is actually pretty good, but the problem is that for families of any size, even if it's just one person living in a place like this, rising housing costs, those are squeezing New Yorkers more than anything else. And that's because New York just simply does not have enough apartments for everybody that wants to live here. And to understand how quickly housing costs have skyrocketed on unsuspecting New Yorkers, look at this. Back in 2020, prices were around $1,000 a month less than what we see today. And critics say that the city's refusal to allow the rapid construction of new apartment buildings is part of the reason why apartments are way more expensive now than they used to be. In fact, the city's own data shows that only 1.4% of apartments are able to be rented. And what that means is for every 1,000 apartments that exist, only 14 can be rented. This is the lowest vacancy rate the city has had in 60 years. And no available apartments means the units that are left rent for premiums. And there's another reason that's a huge problem, which nobody's talking about.
The number of people making more than $1 million in household income a year who choose to rent instead of buy shot up 171% in just 5 years. The number of millionaire renters in the city just over none.
So things have now gotten so tough in the housing market that people who everyone considers to be rich are deciding to rent. And no one expected this new class of millionaire renters to appear on the scene suddenly and screw up the market. And the reason that's a problem is because whenever you have a housing crisis, you end up in situations where there might be multiple parties that want the same exact apartment. And you know what happens when that happens? Some landlords will ask everybody who's interested if they can pay a little bit more for the same place. And of course, millionaires will always be able to outbid average individuals for apartments. After all, we're talking about some of the city's top earners here. People you'd think would be more interested in buying an apartment than renting one. But the problem with that is it means the city's strained housing market is in an even tougher position than city planners ever imagined. And that's a problem because traditionally, home ownership has been the middle class's path to financial freedom. But if the middle class is being priced out of the rental market, they'll never be able to save up enough to buy because things are so expensive right now, the rich aren't even in a position to buy.
Monthly on average, your rent here right now, $36.45. For a new mortgage payment, you're looking at almost $6,000. So that premium is a lot higher right now in New York City.
And another problem this causes is, let's say you're wealthy enough to buy a place. Let's say you buy a place like this for the highest price it will ever sell for. Who will then come along and buy it from you if no one can afford to do that? What kind of an investment is that? These are questions everyone's asking themselves right now. And the conclusions they come to are leading them to put their money elsewhere. Stocks, commodities. But you might be looking at all of this thinking to yourself, well, if all of the apartments are unaffordable at the wages most people are making, won't the jobs and companies in New York pay more so that their workers have a place to live? Well, you'd think so, but sadly, that's not really.
And you would think that the jobs would pay you more, but they're not. They're gonna give you the same little nickels and dimes they've been giving you. Crime is gonna go up. I mean, it's like a trickle. It's a domino effect. It really is. And it's sad. But that's the thing. I never want to live in New York. Thank the Lord. New York, it's too crowded. Those big swamp rats. Well, those aren't even swamp rats. Them big gator rats. And I want to visit New York. That's what I want to do. I want to visit New York, but not stay there.
offices. We're surrounded by them. And that might make it look like the job prospects here in New York are pretty good because there are so many companies here. And that's partly true, partly not true. A New York job will pay you more than the same job in Massachusetts, that's for sure. But the problem is not every job here pays enough money for you to live here comfortably. And of the jobs that do, most of them are pretty hard to get. Accounting, finance, law, these are specialized jobs that are gonna require a specific degree. In fact, the rate to attend NYU for 1 year is more than most people make. That's absolutely insane. And even if you graduate from there, there might be millions of apartments in this city, but not millions of employers willing to pay you enough to live in them. Which means that going to college and getting a degree, not exactly a risk-free endeavor, especially when you consider that hourly earnings in New York are around $42. Far lower than the $67 an hour you'll need to live.
Okay. Just on a side note, I mean, this is totally off topic, but did that apartment look just like that apartment that lady fell out on Child Play? It looked just like that apartment that the lady fell out of the window. I had not so long ago seen Child Play, and that's what I just thought of. I was like, that look like that. I wonder was it over there? Because I know that was in New York. I was like, I wonder was that the apartment.
Comfortably. But unfortunately, the predictions for New York City's future job market aren't any better. And they predict that as time goes on, New Yorkers will only make less, not more. Which, as you can imagine, is a big problem in a city where the costs to live here go up every single year. But we're already seeing most job growth in lower paying industries. And that essentially means that without drastic action, the squeeze is going to be even worse for New York City's middle class. And the effect of this will be that the only people able to survive in this city are going to be people whose lives are flexible enough to allow them to make the types of sacrifices needed to live in a smaller apartment, maybe to not eat the fanciest food, maybe to not have the most exciting social life. These are real sacrifices. And this might mean you don't live in a luxury high-rise by yourself. Instead, you might live in a low-rise apartment with a roommate. And if you do make those sacrifices, what exactly would your life be like? Let's find out. Okay, it technically opens, and this is the cheapest 2-bedroom anywhere in Midtown Manhattan. And although it might not be the largest apartment in town, it gets the job done just fine, and not every apartment in this city has laundry. $46.95 rent. This is what affordable living looks like because you can share this with somebody else. You have a living room, and if you thought that bathroom was way too small, dun 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 dun, this place actually comes with another small bathroom, which means you and whoever you share this with each get your own bathroom. So it's like 2 studio apartments connected with a kitchen. On top of that, we're in Manhattan right now. You can find 2-bedroom apartments in Brooklyn or in Queens for $4,000 or less per month. But as far as starter apartments go, this is the reality for most people. And if you make $80,000 a year, your take-home pay every single month isn't gonna be this. This is your gross. This will be your take-home $47.90. And after you pay your $2,000 rent, $27.90 is what you're gonna be left with. And that $27.90 is gonna have to get you through the rest of your existence here. Groceries, let's say $500 a month. Electric bill, we'll say $250 in total, $125 per person.
That's all them money.
If you want to get places, you're going to have to pay to use the subway. You're not going to have a car, even though you see cars out on the street. Forget about that. The subway is going to be much cheaper. After you buy your $130-ish Metro card, this is what you'll be left with, around $1,900 a month. Now, when I first moved here, if I had a room like this and I had $1,900, I would have felt rich for sure, because a college dorm was where I was living previously, but you should be saving around 20% of your take-home pay, which would put that at around $950 a month in savings, and that'll leave you with around $1,000 a month to do whatever you want with. And if you have student loans, let's pretend it comes out of the savings. $250 a week, that's not a whole lot in a city where everything is overpriced, and we're just talking about the expenses for one person living on a bed in a room like this. And that $250 a week, that doesn't just have to cover your fun, clothing, medical expenses, unforeseen electronics purchases. The point is, you're gonna be home a lot. You're gonna spend a lot of time in your room because you don't have a lot of money to do other things. It's gonna be work, and then it's gonna be sleep, and then it's gonna be work, and then it's gonna be sleep. If you're gonna live in New York City, it helps to have some sort of goal that is so good you are willing to live in a manner that is maybe different than where you came from in Massachusetts. Maybe you're here to start a business. Maybe you're here to climb the corporate ladder and go straight to the top. Either way, the desire to live in New York City for a purpose greater than the actual apartment definitely helps and definitely reestablishes what's comfortable to something maybe a little bit more in tune with what we will find here. But the problem is those opportunities that are so good that people are willing to live here, they're becoming scarcer. And we're at the point now where city leaders have to take some sort of drastic action, and they better do it quickly, because every month less and less people are able to stay here and accomplish the thing that they set out. Work is just going to get progressively harder and harder to live in. The big question is this being done on purpose? And the answer to that, yes and no. I'll explain. And the reason it's complicated is because New York City doesn't have any good solutions on the table for how to fix this mess. This could be deliberate. There are forces who benefit from a housing crisis, or perhaps it could be unintentional and the city's just not yet ready for the types of change that we need. For example, city leaders keep talking about the need for affordable housing and how we're gonna pass affordable housing legislation to make it happen, and that sounds good. And to make it sound even better, the city wants to use its own money to develop these affordable housing projects. But just like the idea of living comfortably means one thing to one person, the idea of living affordably means another thing to another person. And the affordable housing plans we've got on the table would make it so that people who make over $200,000 a year can live affordably. $233,000 a year for a family of 4, which means even with an affordable housing plan, many people are still going to end up getting priced out. But as bad as this plan is, in that it is named after something that should give people a lot of hope, the city's other plans might be even worse. And the plan is to turn empty offices like this one right here into apartments, which sounds great. New York City has a ton of empty office space. Wow. But hold on a minute, is this another plan that will just create apartments for rich people? Unfortunately, that's exactly what it is. It's another plan to create apartments most people can never afford. And before we get into why this is the case, understand that New York City has many empty offices now because of remote work. Offices many a New Yorker wouldn't mind living in, especially if it would save them money every single month. But the problem is, even though city leaders say we need more affordable housing and say they want to be efficient and use these empty offices to turn them into apartments, the laws that already exist here stop that from happening. Because it's actually illegal to take an office that looks like an apartment and make it an apartment unless the people doing the conversion spend insane amounts of money to redesign the entire property from the inside out so it meets the city's other laws. And even though it's recently come out that more than 45 offices in the city are going to be turned into apartments, the first thing to understand is that this is not going to happen immediately. These conversions will take years. And the second thing to understand is that these are all going to be luxury apartments, not helping people who can't afford luxury rents.
We toured some of the finished apartments in Pearl House. This studio rents for $3,500 a month.
This is a gorgeous building, but does it solve the problem of affordable housing because the person struggling with rent isn't necessarily moving into this beautiful building?
This city has a major supply problem in terms of housing. We need housing for all income levels. More homes in New York City will equal more affordable.
Yeah, so that tiny studio is more expensive on a per person basis than anything we've looked at today. Not to mention, there's no way a family of 4 is going to fit in an apartment that size. And it's almost like these office to residential conversions aren't solving anything except making the owners money. At least that's what it looks like. On the other hand, the mayor's liaison...
Right, that's what it looks like. It's like they're making things higher so it can keep the people down. And then it's like the state not making them leave. It's like they gonna be so poor that hell they gonna have to leave to go somewhere else in order to live, because this stuff is extremely high. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It really is. It's
that had the hard hat on, she brought up something very interesting. She said that adding housing to a market that is in crisis at any price point increases the overall supply of apartments, which is going to bring down prices, because there will be people that want to live in the brand new studio versus the larger apartment because it's got all kinds of fancy new stuff and maybe it has Bluetooth. But she's essentially espousing a free market economic viewpoint of just pummeling this market with supply in whatever method is possible. And if you think about it, more apartments buildings, even if they're just one-person apartments. If you can build enough single-person apartments, people will decide not to have roommates anymore, because living alone will now be something single people can afford. And once that starts happening, people will move out of tiny two-bedroom apartments, freeing those up for couples or for people who need an extra bedroom for maybe an extra someone who's 9 months away. It will take time. It won't be immediate, but neither is building buildings from scratch. That's not immediate either. And what this could mean is that in an unaffordable city full of terrible choices, building things and letting the market do what the market wants to naturally do might be the city's best choice. Of course, New York City is incredibly progressive, so we'll have to see if that's even allowed to happen. Do you think it'll be enough, or is it already too late? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next.
I think it might be a little too late, because I mean, just like you said, like, only thing they can hope for is that the people who do got a little taste of money, that they run over there to the luxury apartments. It's hard. That's hard. And I hate to see people just struggle like that, but people have to have like 2 and 3 jobs just to even make ends meet for one apartment. Because, you know, some people don't like to live with other people, especially they don't know them. But more than likely, they're going to try to, like, live with someone that they know. But sometimes you have to just interview people. Because I know people in New York, they do stuff like that. They interview people so they can move in with them. And they be crazy. Some people are crazy. You can't just live with everyone. And it's just, New York nasty anyway. I heard someone say it stinks. So someone said it stinks. I want to smell the stinking it for myself. That's why I said I want to visit there myself, but not live there, because that's hard. I mean, that's difficult. It's very difficult to try to live. And like, you have to have a big dream to just want to go to New York. And I don't, you know, bash anyone for who wants to do that. That's their thing. But I don't. I'm fine. I want to go to a city, but it ain't gonna be New York. I will catch y'all in the next video. You guys, y'all tell me what y'all think. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye, you guys.